I have been working, I've been working for about 23 years. Most of it has been in STEM related areas. And I'm delighted to be here to speak to everybody about the opportunity that exists for Africa in that specific area. We are fine here. We thank God for that. It's just me and my daughter, and we've been safe. The family has been safe in the middle of a lot of turmoil and a lot of suffering around us. Currently, my daughter will be, I think my daughter will be joining Waterford in September, and we're really looking forward to that. I was telling Anne earlier that I've already been put to work, and I look forward to many, many different opportunities of learning from and extending knowledge during our time there. Thank you so much, Anne.
Thank you, Agnes. Thank you very much. And to you, Carmen.
Thank you, Anne. It's a real pleasure. I mean, thank you to the whole audience to consider me as somebody, that you would like to listen to on a Saturday afternoon. So I'm Carmen Kamgaing. I am currently based out of Johannesburg. I'm originally from Cameroon. And I left home, I was 16 years old to go to school in France, in Canada, and I'm an engineer, a mechanical engineer as a background. Currently, I'm the region manager for Caterpillar, based out of Johannesburg, as I said. So I cover our whole Africa region. I hope we'll have time to talk about what it means. But while I'm here, I'm the single daughter of a family of 5. So I have 4 brothers, and I'm the only girl. And I hope I'll be able to share with the ladies and the boys or everybody on the call today what has been my journey in the STEM world. So as you know, I'm safe, thank God, and I hope all of you also are safe today and your family are doing well.
Thank you, Carmen. Thank you very much for that lovely intro. And I think we have 1 hour, so we're going to put it to good use. And both of you are incredible. When I read the bios, and I hope the audience has read the bio, Liz, if we can post the bio in the chat for those who haven't, so that we can see how really lucky we are to have both Agnes and Carmen with us this afternoon. When I read your bios, the one thing that struck me is the roles you're occupying right now are not traditionally occupied by people who look like you. Let's start there. So maybe to really start off this conversation, if you can share with us, I know your journey has been long. Agnes, you've been working for 23 years or so. So share with us how your journey has been, what you have had to go through to get where you are, very briefly.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think my journey was interesting, and I had extremely profound moments when I was much younger, actually the age of a lot of the students today at the school, that then determined where I ended up. When I finished university, when I finished high school here in Kenya, I was admitted at the local university to do mechanical engineering, Carmen. And I was very excited because my father was an engineer. And so day one, we got to school and my class had about 120 students. Of the 120 students, we were 4 women, 4 girls, I would say, not even women then. And it was difficult. That was many, many, many years ago. A lot has changed since. We thank God for that. But in those days, you could put your hand up, you could jump on your desk, you could yell, and the professor would never pick on you to answer a question or ask. You're invisible. And the world has changed so significantly. And I think I'm an example of that. And I have lived through the transition that the world is making to make the workplace better and easier for women. Fast forward, I went to Bryn Mawr College. I hope we have a few people here going to Bryn Mawr College. Or have picked an all-women liberal arts college in the US as a place to go and get further education. Then I came back home and I got a really great foundation, 14 years at Deloitte Consulting. After that, that was when I entered the STEM space. I worked for SAP, I worked for Safaricom, which is a telecommunications company and the home of M-Pesa. I work for a payment platform, and finally at Google. I think the common thread there is I was always alone at the table. When I was at SAP, I sat on the EXCO, the executive committee for Africa. I was the only woman at that table. When I worked at Safaricom, I was the only woman at my level. When I was at Pesalink as the CEO, my whole board was male except me. And now at Google, I have finally found a space where more than 50% of the directors in Africa are actually women. Very new experience for me. Very new experience for me. But I think the learning there has been, there are not enough women at the table. That needs to change. The most amazing thing is most organizations are making space.
Is it me, or have we temporarily lost Agnes?
Yeah, I think we've lost Agnes.
So we're going to pause the Agnes conversation now and allow her to come back and come to you, Carmen. I mean, when you hear a story like that, I'm sure your path is no different, where you've had to break through ceilings and you look around you and there's not many people who look or, you know, or come from the same background you do. Please share with us some of your story.
Well, you know, I mean, like you said, it's similar to what Agnes shared. But me even started earlier. It started at home. And you know, I'll just take a little bit of time to share with everybody here the story that happened to me. I was 14 years old. I told you I was the only girl in a family of 5 children. I have 4 brothers, but I'm the eldest. And I thought, you know, I was lucky enough in my home. We had, I had my own bedroom, and my brothers also had their room. So I was fortunate in a family setting where we could afford that. But one day, my father always told me, Carmen, you can do whatever you want. You can get to, you know, anything. At school, I was always the best in my class. And one day I fought with my brother. Okay, and I fought and I kicked him out of my room. And then he ran to my dad crying. He told my dad, yeah, Carmen kicked me out of her room. My dad came to me and he told me, Carmen, you have no room in this house. You're a woman. Eventually you'll get married. Once you get married, you go to your husband's family. However, your brothers, they can bring their wives here, but you cannot, so you eventually go. I was 14 years old. After everything that my father had always taught me, Carmen, you can do everything, etc. At that moment, I just realized there was a difference between my brothers and myself, right? So, and I think it was really a determining factor in everything that I did. From that moment, I only knew, well, you know what? I will show you that not only, right, I am the same, but I'm not determined by the fact that I'll be married to somebody or not. So I left home. I told you, I finished my high school, I was 16, so I was 1 year advanced. My grades went just up. It was just a sign, it was a motivation for me. And my dad wanted me to be a doctor, right? So I went, I wasn't bad at biology, so I wanted to be an engineer. And I think in my bio, you saw that. I decided that I will go to Canada, you know, and I'll start engineering there. Sorry, Agnes, we lost you, so I took the stage.
We will come back to you, Agnes, and finish that very interesting story. We will come back. So, Carmen, if you can continue, we will switch back to Agnes.
I said, and that has been my motivation all the time. So, you know, my grades at school, university, like I said, I'm mechanical industrial engineering. I worked in Canada. Africa was always close to my heart. I won't tell you about my whole career, but what I would really like to insist on is my motivation was coming from the fact that my dad had told me this, right? So I was kind of I wanted to prove him that he was wrong. But I realized over the course of my career that, you know, at the end of the day, you can find elements in any type of experience to get the better of yourself. But at the end of the day, the motivation has to come from within. So I think it's only in 2019 that my dad told me he was proud of me. I'm telling you, I graduated, I had the best scores, I was honor student all the time. But then I had that discussion with him and he told me, but you know what? And he never realized what he told me. He was just, he wanted to get out of a conflictual situation with my brother and he said that thing. He didn't even remember what he said. But for him, it was just that, well, you know what? Oh, those two kids are fighting. What can I say to just, stop it? And he said that because also he was a victim of the environment that he has been evolving in. And that's what he utilized at that time. So I'm just saying sometimes the limitations of others can become either your limitation or your motivation. So this is why I know throughout my career, and now I realize it in retrospect, I really try to understand, well, people will come, they will have your advices, they will tell you things, but it doesn't have to determine who you want to be or who you will be. In my case, it turned out to be a positive motivation, but it could have been something different. So you really have to know exactly, well, what is my full potential? What it is that I want to do for myself? What are the tools? As Agnes pointed out, we do have so many resources now. We do have so many people around us. We have access to so much information that, I don't think a girl or a woman today is limited really by the environment. She's more limited by her own willingness to access that information to serve her own purpose. So I took that story just to give you an illustration of what my journey has. But yes, as Agnes, you get into the room, especially Caterpillar, you're the only female, the only Black person, because in mining and Caterpillar, it's mainly, white, male, over 50s, 60s. You get into the room, but also our organization, the organization that we represent, are very intentional about bringing more women, more African women to the table. So it's on us to take that opportunity and make it the best for ourselves, as well as for our sisters, for our daughters, and etc.
Thank you, Carmen. Thank you very much. You've given us a lot of themes that we'll come back to them. Yeah. One is the context, the culture context within which we operate. The second one is the voice of the parents. So when we talk about this conversation, the voice of the parents, whether intentional or unintentional, has a place in this conversation. And third, about coming from it deep within. It starts from deep within and grows. So we'll come back and explore some of those themes. But maybe back to you, Agnes. You left us on a cliffhanger. So if you can just pick up where you left off.
So I think the point I was driving home is the world is improving. It's getting better. The ground is significantly much softer today than it has been. And the opportunities are there. And organizations are working day and night to create an environment where women can thrive. Now, what needs to happen is these women need to be brave and go and take those opportunities that are currently being built. So I think, and the question we need to figure out is, how do we get more women into STEM courses to take up these opportunities that are being created?
Sorry, indeed, Agnes, how do we do that? The reason why this conversation is so important, because it touches two things that have for a long time been missing. Female leadership on its own, any field, if you look on the African continent, has been a real conversation that we talk about a lot, but in reality, the reality is so different from what we need it to be. And I'm not talking just corporate leadership. I'm talking political leadership, community leadership. Leadership across all sectors is such a big part. So when we take leadership and add it to STEM, because STEM is that big thing that's driving the whole world. And for those our friends students, if you already know what STEM is, please forgive me. And if you don't, we're talking science, technology, engineering, and maths. I understand there's now an A in there as well to do with art and design. So it's all those things that we haven't really focused on, or we haven't always focused on. But what we're saying is that they're driving the world. They're driving the world, and they're shaping our everyday life everywhere. One of the questions that we want to explore in this, you say that opportunities are there, that companies, both Google and Caterpillar, are creating room. But how do we give them the raw material they need? How do we, with the students in Kamhlaba, start to prepare for that new world that's going to come? And maybe to you, Carmen, What do the students listening to you now need to know? What do they need to do so that their minds are shaped and they understand that there is a light at the end of the tunnel that we're ready and willing to welcome them when they come out of school?
I think, it's first, the audience that we do at 14, 15, 18 years old, I think at that age, the first thing they need to probably do is to be curious, right? You're in the school, for example, where you do have some subject at school. How do you expose, or how do the school expose those girls to those STEM fields, and how do they really raise that interest? There's some, again, not everybody has to be, in the STEM field, but the thing is, if you have that attraction to any of those subject matter, how do you make sure that at school, you reach out to your, either your mentor or your teacher or your advisor to say, well, I'm interested into it. Talk to today, like we said, the support system is so strong. So really be intellectually curious about it. Be involved in different programs, and there's so many of them. Any schools that you go to today, there's so many different of them. So don't be afraid, and don't be afraid to show your interest and reach out and say, well, and if you don't feel comfortable, try to find out. Access to information today is so, it's just at a click of any button, at school, at home. Really develop that interest. I think, and like I say, I think we do have, I'm really intentional when I say we do have much more power ourselves. And it starts with really making a decision that this is a field that is interesting for me. And what do I do on a daily basis to, let's say, to nurture my understanding of that field? And then the opportunity will come. Again, like I said, I'm only based on my story, and it's not everybody's story. And that's why I say, don't look at just somebody, you look at somebody as who they are, but it doesn't silence who you can be, which is much better than what that person is, right? So, and this is what I love to see. I say, well, I can be an example to others, but not just, it's my story. Build your own, utilize my experience, but build your own. And so really, as teachers, as mentors, on the call, parents here, encourage your children. If they show interest, encourage them. You say it's very important to bring those words, show them that it's possible, that they can do it, and really nurture those conversations and how they can really foster that understanding of any subject. It could be the mathematics, it could be technology, etc. Put them onto those projects, put them in different groups where they can exercise that and those skills that they do have. So that would be, at that age, what it is, I say, be curious, be curious. Eat, drink a lot of information. It will serve you in the future. When I was 16, nobody would have told me that I'll be sitting here, people will be listening to me. I was like, seriously, what do you think? All you need to do is just get more of it. Learn. That will help you grow. And when the opportunity comes, obviously you have all the preparation that you took, and that will make it, to become that success that you're looking forward to have.
Thank you, Carmen. I think curiosity is the foundation of all learning. You have to feed the curiosity within you and that monster. I want to come to you, Agnes, and talk about the future of work. In my own organization, when I started work, like you, almost 20 years ago, the entry point interview was purely about your IQ. What did you score in school? What subjects did you do? What did you score in maths? Because I'm a banker and it's numbers. That was all it was all about. As we progressed, we added emotional intelligence, how to relate with people, how do you do that? And now in my organization, we've added a new one, which is your agility quotient. How agile are you? Can you share with us, as a leading company in Google, how do you see the future of work changing? And more importantly for our audience, what must they do to prepare for this future that's ever evolving?
Thank you. And indeed, the world we live in now and the world we live in tomorrow will look very different from, again, the one I grew up in. I think when we went to university, there were like 7 degrees in total. You could do engineering, law, medicine. Bachelor of Arts was called Bachelor of Arts General, or you could do BSc, and there were literally only 7 or 8 degree courses that you could actually do, or Bachelor of Education, and that was it. Today, there is so much that you can study, and almost anything that you're passionate about, there's a path to learning for it. But I think as Carmen said, you have to be a self-starter and be curious. You have to be curious and brave and decide if this is the way I want to go. And it's okay right now not to actually know if, tomorrow, when I graduate, I want to be a banker. It is okay at this age. And that's what university is for. At university, you learn how to think. Those 3-4 years, I think when you get out of it, that's all you live with. Ability to think, especially if you've done a good job at university and allowed yourself to explore as much as you can. And the person who is employed right now, as Anne says, is agile. They can actually do quite a number of different things. A topic can be put in front of them, and they know how to access the knowledge, process it, analyze it, and give the feedback that is required by the organization. An interesting fact here, and this is not to dissuade anyone from going to university, is that at Google, for example, we have removed the degree requirement for employment. And that's because a large percent of the people who we hire are developers. In Africa today, only 33% of employable developers are taught in university. Imagine the rest of them are self-taught. Only 33%. And that's not to speak to the students. It's to speak to, I think, the tertiary institutions and their ability to completely keep pace with what the world is needing and demanding from the children they're graduating. But the future of work is going to be different. We're probably the last generation, Anne and Carmen and the teachers here, who are going to be permanent and pensionable. What is now happening is we have a whole thing called a gig economy that is building up. Today we have companies that cannot, quote unquote, keep developers, because developers are not kept. Developers come in, they build, and once everything is running, they're looking for the next challenge and the next challenge. So there is no developer who wants to sit and be employed. They want to be the best in their field and be given interesting and challenging projects in different companies to work on. So we are finding younger and younger people are grouping together, especially in the tech space, are grouping together 3-4 developers, young. When I say young, I mean 22, 23, 24 years old. And they say our specialization is gamification. So if a bank wants to build something that speaks to their customers through game, they will go and contract these 4 or 5 people who have come together. They will build it, they will leave it running, and then they'll go and find the next thing. So the world is changing. How we are hiring as organizations is changing. The preferences of the people who we are hiring are also very, very different. So the days where we say, you need to come in, you need to sign a contract, your pension is 5%, the company contributes, no. I think the next generation has shifted from there. But the question is, how do you then prepare yourself? If you're truly interested in STEM and you're interested in those, be brave, be unafraid. It's not hard. And the good thing is there's so many different pathways you can take. You will find something you're passionate about. Every single company today is looking for people who have some analytical mind. The analytical mind is built by stretching and stretching your brain around science and math and those sorts of subjects. And they will do you good for a lifetime. So the world we live in now is probably not going to be the world we will live in from an employability or an entrepreneurship perspective when you're graduating from university. It's important to note the trends that are going, but it's also important to know that not everything you need will come from a formal university. Be curious, be agile, do research, and go out and try new things outside the formal education that you're getting. Then you'll be a better person when you now come into the work world to try and help solve some of the challenges that we have.
Well, thank you, Agnes. You've given us quite a lot to chew on. But what I picked out mostly, again, the curiosity comes out. The fact that people don't want to be employed full time. So this happens to me all the time. People walk into my office and I'm like, yo, I feel like I'm doing you a favor. I'm giving you it's like, no, sorry, Anne. I will only give you 3 days a week, Monday to Wednesday, between this time and this time, after which I want my time back, which is a different thing. Ourselves and the people who came before us were all about your pension, if you're in university or a teacher, your tenure, how long you stayed, So the world has really, really changed. And the other one, maybe I'd add to your response, Agnes, is continuous learning. That first of all, learning does not stop when you get your degree. Learning does not stop when you live. Learning happens across the entire spectrum. And increasingly, we're seeing a space for self-learning, being self-taught, which of course starts with curiosity. I think we are being very serious in this conversation. I want to break it up a little. And we all, as women, we have stories that we tell about when you found yourself in a space and you looked around and you were the only one, and there's mistaken identity stories. And I want to share with you mine, and you can share with you yours. So I'm sitting in this conference room in Joburg, and I came early because, I don't live there, so I don't know their traffic situation. 7 a.m., I'm sitting there in the boardroom. And so the person who comes in next sees me and sits down, doesn't greet me, puts down and says, then looks up and says to me, black coffee, 2 sugars, please. So I said, oh, okay, good. So long story short, that gentleman was there to be interviewed by me, but never in his mind could he fathom that, and I hadn't even turned 40 yet, so that a person who looks like me might be the one employing him and interviewing him. So I thought I'd ask you ladies to share, do you have places where you have been, where you can see, because I want to frame the question of perspective and the world through people's minds, and how increasingly when we stand up and we take space in these positions, you're not doing it just for yourself, Agnes or Carmen. You're doing it for every single person who comes after you. So if you have a similar story like that, or something that where you have found yourself in a space where you're not just representing you. I felt like I was carrying the back of all my Black girls. In that moment, I was standing for them, and I was showing this person that there are many more like me where I come from, and we are taking the space that we need to take up on this continent. Carmen, if you have something of a similar nature to share.
Well, I would say it's funny that you share that, because usually, you don't see that from the video, but I'm 6'1". That's 184. I mean, like, I'm tall. So whenever I walk in the room, I already take the space. Like, usually that's what it is. I just take the space, right? I'm very like that. But imagine me tall, and you walk in the room, because of the circumstance and environment, you feel small. And let me share you what it was. I was just appointed district manager for covering Western Africa for Caterpillar. Like I said, heavy machinery, white male, really most. And part of my agenda when I was hired was, how do we win in Africa, from Africa, with Africans, as I told you. So it was really about recruiting more people like me, more people like, from the continent pretty much. But my first meeting, I walked in the room with about 25 people. I was the only female. only woman in the room and only Black person in the room, and he was in Europe. And I was leading the meeting surrounded by all those 24 other male. You know, they all had over 25, 27 years of Caterpillar experience. And I was coming with just my 1 year experience. So who is she? Where is she coming from? Et cetera, et cetera. And like you said, you know, and you feel, I told you I'm tall, you felt really, really small. You don't even know where to start. Because not only, well, you know, physically you're different, background, you're completely different. It's a very, you know, it's a world. Those guys, there's a boys club and you're there. But at that moment, what I did is that I reached out to the co-lead who was a male partner. I said, listen, and I told him right there, you know what? I said, you see what's happening here? Caterpillar is going a different direction. So the bus is leaving the station. So we can all, you know, be part of the journey and make it as smooth as possible for everybody, or we'll try to resist. But it's not going to change anything because the bus is leaving. So I'm going to count on you, you know, and I asked him, can I count on you to help get the bus going and staying on the rail? And he just turned to me and said, Carmen, you can count on me. So I didn't know all the ins or outs of the conversation. I didn't know, but you create your alliances. Because if I'm there, you know, again, I'm an employee of an organization. So there's, like Agnes says, there's a willingness from those organizations to drive those change and bring diversity and inclusion to that workspace. So there's a decision that is made already. So I'm being used also as a tool to accelerate on those changes. So how do you now build your alliances around? And that person, you know, every time we share that, even today in other settings, we share that. We looked at each other. I said, you know what? Listen, we're either in or we're out. So we better be in. Agnes, as you mentioned, we're still in a generation where we want to be, you know, we want to secure our jobs. We're not just, so all of them, they just, and this is what my story has been. And all the time, whenever I'm in those type of situations, I try to understand what is the environment like, try to see what are the people's perspective, who are the people that I can count on to, you know, to get to the objective, get to the point that we all have. Because at the end of the day, you know, it's not my journey. I think people genuinely want the world to be a better place. And sometimes they just don't know how to do it. So you just need to see who you can, you know, link up with in order to make it, you know, to get to that better place that we all seek it.
Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing that. And I think the question when we come to you, Agnes, is also going to be, how do we build that courageous muscle? Because it takes courage to take up space. It takes courage. When I think about Caterpillar, I think about all those yellow trucks and the forklifts and things. And I can't imagine a little girl running something like that, and a Black girl at that. This is a very powerful message. So it's a mindset. And how do we then, when I turn to my 15-year-old Chirabo, how do I turn and tell her, it's okay, you belong, you have something to add in that space? Agnes, if you can share with us how your story is.
I think, so I ran quite a number of mentorship programs for women in tech in different stages of their career. And one thing I consistently tell them is, I've actually never walked into an office as a woman. I walk into that office with my content. And as long as you have your content right, you know your stuff, nobody will ever take away from you anything. They will never have an opportunity to. They will never have to pull out the gender card. And the minute you show that, you know, you're worth your seat at the table, they will respect you. So I keep telling young girls, young women, and unfortunately, and this is so horrible, and this is part of some of the bias we have in the workplace. Unfortunately, you will have to prepare more. You will have to prepare harder, and you will have to have 150% of the content anybody else has in those meetings. And you'll go into meetings and you'll hear people fluffing And because they're male, probably white, somehow or other, this stuff just flies and, is acceptable and everyone will laugh about it. But you can't do that. You actually do not have the luxury of that. So every time I tell my young mentees, and as you're about to go into university, same thing, walk into university knowing, first and foremost, you have earned the place, you deserve to be there, and you're there because there's a meaningful change that you can make. In the workplace, know your content. Nobody can ever take your brain away from you.
That is so, so powerful. It is so powerful that while many things come and go, some are in fashion change, excellence doesn't change. Your technical knowledge doesn't go away, it doesn't get out of fashion. And really, really being technically sound and doing that deep work is something that nobody can take away from you. And that's excellence is genderless. And which is why Waterford is such a wonderful place, because they really, really believe in excellence. And you can see that into the students. And I think if there was a conversation to take away from that, the more you're excellent today, that same streak of excellence will carry you through different organizations. And regardless of gender, you will get there. I want to come to you, Carmen, on the opportunities. We've heard from you that Caterpillar has special programs and being intentional about finding Africans who are excellent. It's not enough to be African. You have to be excellent. And share with our students who are listening in, what are some of those opportunities, and what does it take if I wanted to be a yellow metal, to join the yellow metal family? What would it take?
So before I do that, please allow me, because what Agnes said was so important. And I just want to take 30 seconds to reiterate on that. Know your craft. Really master your craft. As you build and you develop and you master your craft, you building also that confidence. Especially us as women, African women, we all sometimes start to stay humble. Not humble, but show. Don't stay in your corner, stay in your space, in your play at your place. So we don't know how to sometimes, promote ourselves, promote our intellect, and say, it took me a long time to walk in the room and say, you know what, I'm an engineer, right? So really, not only you build the credential, know your craft, prepare, and that helps you boost your confidence. So really, Agnes, thank you for putting that forward, because it's so important. So now to your question, Anne, within Caterpillar, what we're doing is that, yes, we're going after talented, Africans. We do have some alumni actually from Waterford, and this is how I found out about the school. So we're looking for people who are ambitious, driven, they have a passion for business, they have a passion for process improvement. It's not about the degree, but really about, people who want to make things better than what they found. That's number one. They also have an understanding of, because it's an American company and we're still being supported a lot by our Occidental counterpart, so they're able to interact with, our counterparts in the US, in Europe, but they do have a deep understanding of the continent. And I'm saying Africa, but when we talk about Africa, there's so many countries, right? It's not because I'm a Cameroonian that I understand Zambia or understand Mozambique, but you do have that understanding that first, Africa is different, our customer base is changing, and you're agile. You can adapt to any of those environments. One person that we just recruited, a young girl, she graduated from Berkeley University. She's a mechanical engineer as well. She had a scholarship from the presidency of Cote d'Ivoire, very bright girl. I asked her what she's doing on the weekend. She says, and I asked her what she's watching on Netflix. And she goes, well, Carmen, you know what? I mostly watch Chinese movies. I say, Chinese movies? Like what? Why are you watching Chinese movies? She goes, well, Carmen, our customer in Africa, in our field, more and more we do have Chinese customers. And she speaks Chinese, she speaks Mandarin, she speaks Korean. She learned that at school. And she says, I need to watch the movies so that I can see, because Chinese, they don't have the same features as us. So it helps me understand through the tone of the voice, what emotion are they conveying. I said, seriously? So I said, what do you mean? She said, well, us African, with our features, we show expression through our smiles. You can see. Chinese, they don't have the same features as us. So their emotions are conveyed through the voice. So I'm watching movies, Chinese movies or Asian movies, so that I can understand when they're talking what they mean. It helps me better serve our customers in Africa. So you see, she's an engineer. She's from Côte d'Ivoire, and that's what she does on the weekend. So really having that agility, that understanding on how the environment is changing, and put forward the efforts to really, strive and succeed in that environment. So we're looking for profile. We're looking for people who are like that, people who think like that. So once they have that kind of mindset, we take them on board. 1 year, they go through what we call a Caterpillar Academy, where they learn about the organization. They go through what we call a graduate program. They will shadow one person into the role that they will be interested in the future. It's a 12-month program. And after that, we put them on the permanent position in either field. It could be, technical, it could be marketing, etc. But really, it's more of a mindset. It's what Agnes described before. We're looking for a specific type of mindset. Intellectually curious, being able to have a vision, being able to push for change, passionate about business, thinking about process improvement, customer-centric. Those are the type of profiles that we're looking for.
Thank you, Carmen, for that. Is there age restriction, or can I still come?
Of course you can. Actually, we've just hired 3 interns. One is 19, and can you believe he's 19? He has already had an internship at NASA. 19. Wow. One is 19, and 3 interns from the Africa Leadership Academy. So and I'm telling you now, I can share openly. You'll be hearing from us, because also we're looking for interns that can come even during the summer, work, either with us or our dealer network, to be exposed to what we do. And then they'll go back to school, but at least they'll have an exposure to, what is Caterpillar work. It's not just that machine that you see on the field. There's a lot. Google is our competitor, for example, you see.
For talent. Indeed, it's interesting. And thank you for that. I think, and I hope Patricia and Elizabeth, we are making note of these wonderful opportunities, because the qualities you described are qualities that are quintessential to our Waterford students: curiosity and openness of mind, and also the hard work. I want to come to you, Agnes, and talk about creativity, and also remind our audience that we are now in the question time. So if you do have some questions, please do put them in the chat so we can see them. Agnes, as we wait for the questions to come through, curiosity and creativity. We talked about creativity, but the school curriculum and the way we went to school, the person who got the highest mark is the person who produced exactly what the teacher said. That there was very little room to color outside the lines. So how is Google dealing with creativity? And more importantly, what do the students who are listening to us, how do they start to work up the creativity muscle? Because in all of STEM, the one thing that's the common thread is creativity, is making a difference, making something out of something that wasn't there before.
Wow. So Google's a very young company, if you think about it. We're less than 20 years old. And it was literally founded by 2 very young students in Stanford. And Google was actually a university project they were working on. So they were told, you need to come up with whatever. They were paired together. They actually didn't even like each other much in the beginning. And they did this project that they then said, after we graduate, let's see if we can continue pushing this. And 20 years later, it's Google. Now, our environment that we have at Google is very pro-innovative. And I know innovation is a buzzword these days in most organizations. But at Google, we take innovation to another level. Every single employee is allowed to do what's called a 20% project. So today I might sit and think, my goodness, I might be able to change the world if I was able to apply technology to this specific problem. All you have to do is tell your boss that's what you want to work on. 20% of your time will be given back to you, and you'll actually get resources to work on it. And that is how most of the products at Google have actually come up. They've come from staff doing 20, we call them 20%ers, doing 20% projects. So things like Google Lens, for those who use it. So a lot of our products come from that space. And the people who rise and grow within Google are the ones who try. It doesn't matter whether you fail or whatever, those who try. And today, for example, here in Kenya, I'll tell you, we are currently piloting something that came from a 20% project. Somebody sat down and said, you know, the cost of infrastructure for internet is so expensive. There must be a cheaper way of doing it. There must. There has to be a cheaper way than digging fiber, terrestrial fiber, through the country to deliver good quality internet. And right now, we're 6 months into an amazing pilot where we are using light between two ends. So we put a little box on one end, a little box on the other end, and using light, we are able to create a huge Wi-Fi presence. And at what cost? I think we're doing something like 200 gigabytes at $1. This is gonna change Africa completely. And this came from someone sitting down and saying, access, providing access to our next billion users who are Africa cannot be this expensive and difficult. We don't have to traverse the Sahara Desert digging cable to get the most remotest of people out there. There has to be an easier way. And this person was given resources. Now they're trialing their project here, 6 months in, it's quite excellent. He's just gotten funding to roll it out to 25,000 communities across Africa. And that is how Google works. As long as you have an idea, it doesn't matter how outrageous it may seem, they'll put money behind it. And that's how we embrace innovation. I think I'll say something else around what Carmen had said in terms of talent and the space that has been created. Currently, here in East Africa, as well in South Africa and West Africa. For East Africa, I have 12 East Africans who were hired by Google. These people never, most of them never even went to university outside Kenya. But they were hired by Google in November for deployment across the world. So somebody is going to Dublin, another one to Switzerland, another one to headquarters, whatever. They actually went through the interview process, beat out international candidates, and were hired. So the reason why they're still here is because of COVID. So I need to babysit them until COVID ends, or we figure out how we're going to live in this world. And then they're going to go across the world to serve Google. Another thing we need to do is we need to liberate our minds in terms of geography. Yeah? You're a global citizen. Your skill set is good in the country you're in. It is also good in India, in Singapore, in America, in China. Your skill set is what organizations are going for. And so, and an organization like ours has learned Africans are a good bet. They work hard, they're illustrious, they're loyal, yeah? And they'll give you 150%. Because our issues are fundamental, hunger, like really fundamental. Yes. We haven't actualized.
No, on the Maslow curve, we are still at the bottom.
We're still at the bottom. And so you'll find we get calls from recruiters from all over the world asking, do you have people who fit this profile? So they're actually looking for us, which is also another amazing thing.
It is. It's very, very amazing. And there's two things I want to pick up on before we go to the questions. One is the fact that we are good enough as Africans to compete on the world stage. It's such a big part of what we need to bring. The mentor thought of thinking, oh, no, I was only born in Kenya. I can only, no. The world is our oyster and we can't do everything around it. But the second one, and why this conversation is so critical, and I think 1 hour was never going to be enough for us to cover everything, that using technology to solve Africa's problems. Like you said, on the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where the bulk of the continent is still at the bottom. We're talking hunger, food, we're talking security, we're talking education, we're talking health. And the only way we can catch up with these gaps is through STEM. Our continent can frog leap a lot of these developments and we grow, but STEM has got to be at the core of everything we're doing, which is why this conversation and being able to build the infrastructure we need as Waterford so that we can drive that is such a critical part. There is a question in the chat which I'd like to ask, and any one of you feel free. It's from Cisco. It says, feel free. No, that's Cisco was earlier. This is from Kutsai. Kutsai is saying, besides sexism from your male counterparts in your careers, have you been in situations where the discrimination is ingrained within the structures and the systems of the organizations where you have worked? And I'll add a second part is, how have you dealt with it?
So I'll take that and use the experience of there's a specific group of women who I mentor. So about 30% of the women who graduate from university graduate with STEM degrees. And most of them actually get good jobs. So they get into the workforce. And so there's about 30% of the engineers or at entry level who are women. By the time you get to manager, there's almost nobody. And because systemically, the organizations are not built, especially for organizations that are tech or engineering organizations, they're not built to accommodate the transitional seasons that women go through. So for example, there's an organization we have here in Kenya. They manage most of our cell phone towers, yeah? So when the engineers join and they are women, they have no issue scaling those towers to the top to, tinker and fix everything, whatever. But by the time they reach 30, 35, will they still be scaling those towers? Yeah? And then a lot of them at some point make choices to get married, to start having children, but you'll find a lot of organizations do not make that space. The job will remain the same. It's hard, it's outside, it's out in the remote areas, fixing base towers. So you're put on a work rota as an engineer to go and fix a base station. And you're just put in rotation with your colleagues. After all, you're all engineers. But you have a small baby at home and you've been sent out to go to some remote area to fix a base station. With time, what that does is it puts, the woman starts asking herself certain questions in terms of what is really, really important to her. And during that season, what is really, really important to her is to nurture a family, a nascent family. And so what happens is they then make choices to drop off. So the seasonality of our lives as women, especially how we are socialized in Africa, sometimes works against us. However, again, as I said, organizations and the government are now understanding that. So for example, in Kenya, it is now a law, a brand new law last week, that every single company must provide for breast pumping, a lactation room, yeah? And must have a refrigerator, and must have, it's now in the law. So what's happening is slowly by slowly, the organizations are evolving, and they're evolving to accommodate these seasons. But the question is always, and this is what I help a lot of these women do, how do you survive that transition to be able to then take on leadership and grow within the career you have so significantly invested in?
Thank you, Agnes, for it. We are fast running out of time. I was going to share with you a story. When I started out, I was a currency trader. I used to trade, I was running the Africa currency desk. And in those days, there were no female traders. They were male, and they were the most of male. I mean, the whole floor was full of men, and I was the only person there. And the morning conversation was usually held at the balcony, the trading strategy for that day. Are we buying the euro? Are we buying the pound? Was outside during the smoking break. I don't smoke. And I'm supposed to be in that meeting contributing. So when you ask about structures and systems that prohibit females from growing, it's a big part. And in fact, I remember the first time I spoke up about this was when I was pregnant, because before I could go and brave the smoke and still, because I wanted to be part of this. When I was pregnant, I was thinking, this is not just going to affect me, it's affecting my child. So enough, guys, the meetings will be held inside the boardroom. You can take your smoke break after the meeting. And I made a lot of noise about it. But these are the things you talk about, and we really, really have to close. As we have to fight in the system, because they are in the system. As we come to the end, Carmen, your last words, closing remarks, the students who are listening, what can they take away? What does the future look like for a typical Waterford student who hopefully we have planted the stem seed, and that increasingly when we have this conversation, it will take root?
So just first, I want to thank you for the opportunity and allowing us to be here with everybody. I think it's unfortunate we don't have much more time, but to what you just shared, and also Agnes, I think it's important to call also to the men in this environment, and see the role that they have to play to support those women through the different cycles that physiologically they have to go through. We talked about pregnancy, we talked about giving birth. How is it that our organization can also give men more days to take care of their children, etc., etc. So I think it's a whole conversation that we can that will require more time. But I think at this stage, the boys, the parents, the fathers on the call, also to see how they can feed the narrative and help the girls, take their place in this environment. So if I just have to close, I'll say, like I always tell the girls that that I mentor through different groups, I say, you own your success. Nobody is going to do it for you, right? As Agnes shared previously, the resources are there. There's so much that is made available. It might not be all, but it's a lot. So really build and inspire that self-efficacy in everything that you do. It starts within, right? And the second thing to the student, build a community around it. Reach out, right? Really reach out. Today you have the opportunity and reach those women or those clubs where you can get the support. You're not alone. You're definitely not alone. There are a lot of people. Speaking today with Agnes, I'm meeting, and I can hear what she says. It could have been my story. So there's so many other women, and there's so many other people around the globe who are there. Just reach out, talk, ask questions. I think the environment is here and is there to serve you. So just take advantage of it. There's no excuse. Take advantage on this.
Thank you, Carmen. Thank you very much. Agnes?
So I'd really, really like to thank you for sharing your Saturday afternoon with us and listening to us. I think every student on this call, or every parent of a student, needs to understand that Africa's problems and challenges will be solved by us. Nobody is going to come and solve them for us. Even in my environment, where I work at Google, I have an opportunity to influence the agenda, where they invest, how they invest, and what they invest in. And for me, it's the things that will move the needle as far as Africa goes. So as you go out and gain knowledge, know and understand that the biggest people changing Africa today, be it in fintech, in e-commerce, in health tech, in agri-tech, are actually Africans today, and they're making us mighty proud. And we hope that every single one of you will go out, get the most amazing education you can get, will explore the world, and come back with a solution for some of the challenges we're having today.
Thank you very much, Agnes. African solutions for Africa by Africans. And there's no better place to start than Waterford. Thank you both ladies. Thank you for sharing your time and your experiences. We appreciate you, and you will hear more from us. I think you're wonderful resources that we will come back increasingly to tap into your experience and into your insights. Thank you very, very much. It's been an education for me this afternoon, and it's been a mighty pleasure to meet you and to host you. I will hand over now to Cisco, who is a student who at Waterford who's leading this program. Over to you, Cisco.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, ma'am. I think just before I give the closing remarks on behalf of the Africa Week team, we would like to hand over to Gathaiya, just to briefly talk about the Careers Fair.
Thank you so much, Cisco. It's an honor to speak on such a great stage. My name is Gathaiya. I'm in IB2 here at Waterford, Kamhlaba, and I am part of the Career Support Initiative, a team of students who organize the annual Careers Fair. So basically, the annual Careers Fair is an annual event that brings together students from across Eswatini so that they can access career information from different companies and organizations, basically to help them make informed decisions about their future. So this year it was an online event, just like Africa Week, and we have been working in collaboration with Africa Week. It's mainly aimed at students in Eswatini, but it's really helpful for everyone who is at a stage whereby you are thinking about the future and you want to make informed decisions. So the link to that online platform where you can find the content, which is in forms of videos, recordings of Zoom interviews and PowerPoints, is in the chat box. So please check it out if you at a stage whereby you want to make a decision about your future. So yeah, thank you to all the panelists. It was a really interesting talk. It's always great to hear from industry experts because it's a source of inspiration and motivation to all of us. So thank you.
Indeed. Thank you so much, Gathaiya, and a huge thank you to our esteemed panelists, Ms. Juuko, Ms. Agnes, Gathaiya, and Carmen, for sharing the experiences today with us. And I truly believe that this will go a long way in fostering resilient Africans ready to take leadership, not just in tomorrow's world, but today's world as well. So unfortunately, we have come to what is the end of what we as the Africa Week team would refer to as part one of a resilient Africa. And truly what a way to end it off. Thank you so much to our guest speakers who have agreed who agreed rather to taking part in our panel webinars, our speaker series, and our keynote address yesterday. Important to note is that this would not have been possible without the help of our advancement office at school. So a huge thank you to Liz, Mangnoba, and Nosimedo, of whom we have bothered, bullied, and everything for the past 6 months, and they essentially made their office hours. A huge thank you to our principal and the school administration for continuously supporting us in all we aspired for this year's event. A special thanks to Mr. Polycarp Ukesa, who's in the room with us today, of whom, even after having left Waterford, continued to successfully guide us as Africa Week, as the Africa Week team, and truly allowed us to show off our resilience and leadership qualities in leading this year's Africa Week. So in concluding, I would like to make a special note of the team of 71 Waterford students who played a pivotal role in planning, running, and executing this year's Africa Week. And without a doubt, this would not have been possible without your support, your attendance, and your engagement throughout the week. Just in all, and on behalf of our team, we thank you ever so much, and we hope to see you soon for the next Africa Week.
This is goodbye then. We loved it so much. We don't want it to end, but thank you very much. Hope
Thank
to
you,
see you
everybody.
soon.
Thank you. Stay safe. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Oh.